Hi and good afternoon, everyone. I have to start with my presentation with two disclaimers. First, that I have a co-author, Fanny Bácsony, who is not here today because she is submitting her doctoral thesis today, so it's a very important day for her as well.
Good luck. And
the second thing is that the thing what I will be talking about is a work in progress. So first of all, I would like to briefly talk about the Resist Lab research, which is the research program itself is part of a longer, 2 years long project, which is executed by a consortium of Hungarian civil society organizations, and the entire consortium is led by the Amnesty International Hungary. And the research part is done by 4 Hungarian NGOs, and the research part is led by Fanny Bácsony, the vice chairwoman of our Hungarian Europe Society. And the focus of the research was identifying and presenting good, innovative and creative practices from abroad in order to gain a kind of more in-depth knowledge on tactics and resistance tools that can be used by Hungarian civil society organizations, especially by the Civilization Coalition, which is an umbrella coalition consisting of now more than 50 Hungarian organizations in the shrinking civil society space in Hungary. So during the research we identified more or less like 10 cases which were collected this year between March and August, and we, apart from the desk research, we've conducted interviews with experts and activists from different countries. And here, first of all, you can see the selected cases from diverse countries and diverse contexts. And actually, during our research phase, the selection criteria was not like whether the case itself was successful or not, but what we try to focus on is collecting inspiring stories that have the potential to be applied in Hungary from countries with authoritarian traits, where the restriction of freedoms and liberties, the decline of pluralism, and also the democratic expressions or the chances for democratic expressions are problematic or limited. And from this list, what you can see, I've chosen now to show you one case study, which is the Georgian case, and the Georgian protest, not from last year and this year, but from 2018, when Tbilisi became the capital of techno. Here you can see kind of context from Georgia. So, as you may probably know, the party, the Georgian Dream, was established in 2012 by a millionaire, Ivanishvili. And although the party was established during the spring 2012, half a year later, it was able to win the parliamentary elections, and since then 4 times in a row. Last time happened last year. Although the 2024 elections were heavily debated and questions, Viktor Orbán was, for example, the first prime minister who endorsed and congratulated for the Georgian Dream, and the prime minister. And the Georgian Dream was also able to win the presidential elections, happened in Georgia, and also the local municipality elections. So actually it was a kind of full-scale attack in Georgia. In the country we are witnessing the dismantling of democratic principles and norms, and also the erosion of the rule of law, and many attacks against the independent institutions and the system of checks and balances. And in the meantime, the executive power and the government increased its aggressive and oppressive policies in the country. And for me, one of the most interesting parts of this story from Georgia is that although in 2008 Georgia also experienced a Russian aggression, but right now there's a kind of strengthening pro-Russian shift in the policy and politics of Georgia. Georgia. So actually all of these led to the suspension of Georgia's EU accession last year. So the question was how to find new tools for resistance and mobilize citizens in the country. And most probably you won't be surprised at the reason why I've chosen this case, because there are some similarities between the two countries. So there are some similarities between Georgia and Hungary. From this list, I just would like to highlight one thing, which is the highly polarized societies. We can talk about parallel societies and realities in Hungary and Georgia, and I brought a quote about Georgia which says that on one side there are the European Georgians, mostly young people who want a free Western lifestyle and were born after the collapse of the Soviet Union, but who already experienced the Russian aggression in 2008. While on the other side, there are the religious Orthodox conservatives who fear a Georgia full of drug addicts and homosexuals who will defend the spirit of the isolated country and monasteries until their death. But from the list you can also see that there are some other similarities between Georgia and Hungary. And the case is the following. So I'm referring to this case as Tbilisi as techno capital. It happened in 2018 when police officers rioted the Bassiani club. It's a very symbolic place in Tbilisi. According to the official claims, several people had died in the city in Tbilisi in connection with drug use before these riots, and they claimed that Bassiani was involved in all of these cases, and Bassiani is the nest of the drug dealers and drug users. During this raid, police officers detained and arrested several people, but the only dealer they allegedly found was outside of these places. So this made this unjustified armed occupation of the clubs even more senseless. The timing is not a coincidence, because the Georgian parliament was about to discuss a possible change in its zero tolerance policy on drugs, but obviously this voting was postponed due to the deaths and these raids. And then the surprising events happened, because many of the party goers, instead of going home, went straight to the parliament building to demand the resignation of the interior minister and the prime minister, and the crowd grew larger and larger and began a dancing protest similar to the protest that ended at the Octagon here in Budapest, but obviously in Tbilisi in Georgia it was much larger in scale. These events happened in May, between May 2018 and June-July 2018, so it was like a large-scale protest against the government's oppression attempts. And the goals what these protesters wanted to achieve changed dynamically and during these times, and included like fair treatment and equality to all citizens, including the LGBT plus community, fighting for the liberalization of the drug policy, ending the harassment of different minorities, ensuring the peaceful functioning of the Tbilisi's nightlife, also the resignation of the Ministry of Interior and the Prime Minister, and in a broader sense a kind of comprehensive change in the general political and social life. The results were partially reached because in May the Georgia's Prosecutor General announced his resignation, and later that year the then Prime Minister also resigned from his position. Here you can see one picture from the Bassiani Club, which is the home of resistance, creativity and solidarity, as we are used to refer to its place. There's a short documentary, what you can find on YouTube, about Naya, who is the founder and the heart of this Bassiani Club, and who is a kind of civil engine in Georgia, we can say. And here you can see the Georgian parliament in Rustaveli Avenue, which is like very similar to Andrássy Avenue here in Budapest, where these party goers went to dance. And actually they were also mobilized the leading international DJ community, which produced this Together with Dance, Together with Stand movie. It's also available on YouTube. And those world famous DJs like David Guetta was supporters of these activities in Georgia. So this is one example or one case study, what I just briefly wanted to show you, and then in a more general way would like to briefly talk about the lessons learned, what we've seen from all of these cases that we identified during this research. The first thing that we focused only on non-violent actions and non-violent cases. So this is a general principle. And sometimes what we've seen, and Serbia was mentioned as an example, so what we've seen Serbia with the cyclists, or Georgia with these artistic performances, but also Cuba, or for example Russia hacking the money, the banknotes, the newspapers and the price tags in supermarket. So what we've seen that all of these actions were building on small scale, everyday and imaginative actions that are not political per se. The other techniques, what we've identified is rethinking the already existing and established mechanisms. Like for example, the current Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan became the leader of the country after some new types of blockades in the country, in Yerevan. So they used these blockades, for example, with creativity. The second general observation is the decentralized way of operation. What we've seen, for example, in Russia with the FAR movement, or in Spain with the Indignados. And it's also very interesting that sometimes these grassroots movements or organizations have a very special type of communication, which is a new way of organizing themselves and communicating, the communication between the members. And also, it's the decentralized way of operation is referring to the lack of kind of former leaders. The third thing is the emerging role of digital tools, because most of these events were organized through different kind of social media platforms, and social media was also used as a communication tool or a channel to broadcast all of these actions in real time. So a lot of live streams were broadcasted in our cases, what we've identified, and this kind of spread of information helped to inform the national and international community, but in a broader sense I would say that it also somehow contributed to the cross-generational solidarity, which is also very important, and what we've seen, for example, in Serbia, and our interviewees just reinforced this observation that there's a kind of cross-generational support behind the protests in Serbia. And the last thing is the tools for mobilization. So in these cases, we've seen the very active involvement of the youth and the empowerment of the younger generations and the generational solidarity that I've just mentioned. And actually, these protests in some cases turned to a kind of festive or festival. This is what we've seen, for example, in Armenia, Georgia, Russia, and Serbia. And humor is also a strategic tool which was used also to somehow overcome and reflect on the absurdity of the authoritarian regimes. And actually, Fanny just added this slide, which is somehow make the connection between the international literature review and these concrete examples. So our empirical evidence from the case studies is in line with the theories and concepts related to the new social movements. So actually, these culturalized social movements and identity-based mobilization is a new form of resistance in these authoritarian regimes. The protest is experience-based and heavily relies on emotions for example. This is what our interviewees also reinforced from Serbia. And it's a connective action, so the participation is not based on a kind of formal membership in an organization or in a movement, but it's rather like social media or mediated networks, what we've seen. So this is our research, what we are doing right now, and this is a work in progress. As I've mentioned, the publication will be released late January or early February with all of these case studies. And as I just mentioned, these are just examples, so most probably you can refer to other examples, other case studies, but we wanted to focus on those studies which are creative, innovative in a way, and for those case studies which somehow can be interpreted or implemented in Hungary. Thank you very much.